And furthermore, what my counterparts tell me is it has slowed the system down.
You mentioned Admiral Winslow.
We are going to leave this hearing now. You can see it in its entirety on cspan.org. We're leaving it to go to the House of Representatives live here in Washington, D.C. They're about to gavel into session. You're watching live coverage on C-SPAN.
The House will be in order. The Chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., July 22, 2013. I hereby appoint the Honorable Steve Womack to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 3, 2013, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with each party limited to 1 hour, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes each. But in no event shall debate continue beyond 1:50 p.m. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer, for 5 minutes.
I arrived at my office this morning to a Politico on the front page headline, "Blumenauer's Death Panel Bill Lives On." It's actually a terrific article by Joanne Kennan, but a terrible headline about non-existent death panels symbolizes why 3 Congresses later we still have not helped families deal with the most difficult circumstances any of us will ever encounter. This issue hit me with full force 10 years ago in the midst of the Terri Schiavo case, where we watched one family's tragedy turn into a national media circus and a political spectacle, all because one 27-year-old woman didn't have a conversation with her loved ones to make her wishes known. What would she want if the unthinkable happened, and she was caught in the terrible circumstance of being in a vegetative state, brain dead, for 8 years, with no likelihood of recovery? Well, it's not really unthinkable. It's just that many of us would rather not think about it. Too rarely do we have this conversation, yet virtually every one of us will be in these circumstances with ourselves or with a loved one, unable to make their wishes known about health care because of permanent or temporary incapacity. And this is not just about end of life. It could be any decision about whether or not to amputate a leg or to have an operation that had carried with it significant risks. Who speaks for each of us when we're unable to speak for ourselves? The public overwhelmingly thinks that people should have the information and that their insurance or Medicare should pay for that conversation with a medical professional. Unfortunately, today Medicare will pay tens of thousands of dollars for a 93-year-old man with terminal cancer to have a hip replacement who will never walk again, but will not pay for a conversation with that same person and their family to understand the circumstances they face and what their options are, to understand their choices and have those choices, whatever they might be, respected, known, and enforced. This actually won't cost us anything. The evidence is that people who know more use their information to choose wisely, very often less intense medical interventions. Overall, it could actually save money. Doctors are perhaps the best example. They certainly can afford medical care. They certainly know about it. Yet because they know what works and what doesn't, they make their wishes known and strategically choose their health care. As a group, they actually end up using less medical care in their last year of life, but arguably have a higher quality of life. Everybody should have the same choice as a doctor. I'm in the process of visiting with each and every member of the House to see if we can do something that will give people the care they want, that is overwhelmingly supported by the public, that won't cost the federal government any net cost. I urge my colleagues to examine the bipartisan legislation H.R. 1173 that Dr. Phil Rowe and I have introduced to help families in their time of greatest need. Personalize Your Care Act of 2013. I think it's worth a look. I think it's worth your support. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from New Mexico, Ms. Lujan Grisham, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection. Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, it is important that we always remember why we are here and who we serve. And the best way to do that is by spending time with the people that we were elected to represent. For the past few days, I've had the honor of showing some wonderful residents of New Mexico's 1st District around our nation's capital. And this group includes my daughter, Taylor Grisham, and her new family, Ian, Cayman, Quan, and I'm missing one, the Stewarts. These people are leaders in the community, they're model citizens, they're family members, and they're longtime friends. And today, I'd like to recognize 2 of these individuals for their service to New Mexico and to our nation. Lori Drury and Maureen Salmon, both of whom are here today, are exceptionally talented teachers and dedicated public servants. Teachers play an invaluable role in our society, creating jobs, defending and expanding the middle class, growing the economy, making sure everyone has a fair shot at the American dream. Teachers directly contribute to all of these noble missions, and they don't do it for the money. They don't do it for the glory. They do it because they care deeply about the students they teach. So I rise today to thank Lori and Maureen, to thank my family, and to thank all of the teachers and public servants in New Mexico and in America for the work they do each and every day to make this a finer and stronger America. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess until 2 p.m. today.
And the House is back in session at 2 p.m. with debate on several suspension bills scheduled for